to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Come, I would say, early August, I'm friends with his, I guess, security guy.
Oh, yeah?
Here in Texas.
Does he have a full-time security guy?
Yeah. And
Okay.
and so, obviously to respect Joe's, privacy and stuff, I'm try to admit as
Right.
much as I can.
Yeah.
But
Can you tell us if he has a dozen security guys or just one?
I don't know. I feel like Joe can take care of himself.
That's
You know
what I
mean?
feel like too. I was like, why does he even have a security guy?
Right. Like it's like you're in a room with Joe and it's like, dude, this guy lifts, man. Like, this guy can like punch through my chest and like, so. But I think that's just like what the case with every high profile person.
Yeah.
It's like you get bum rushed by a million people. You can only kick at so many of them.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just got a call from somebody, he was working with that said, hey, I know a guy who does this stuff. And, we met up and kind of the rest was history. He just asked like, hey, what's your idea for this? What would you do? Kind of give him my design proposal. And, a lot of, kind of coming into this like head first really quickly, it was like, hey, like I don't even have time to do a SketchUp or anything like a rendering. So it was really just having a structure that was already there. Mm-hmm. If you look in the pictures, there's that kind of cylindrical structure that was built in there. That
was the cylindrical structure there, or did you build that?
So the that structure had already been built by some artist in the past, and it was serving as a room within the facility.
Oh, okay.
And so the challenge was taking this structure and soundproofing it, for lack of better terms, and then getting it ready for production. And so there were a lot of things that had to go into this room to actually get this thing finished out. Mm-hmm. And then also taking the parameters for color and like little things that we had gotten from Joe and say, okay, how can we tie this into a working podcast studio? And I mean, full disclosure, I'm not an avid podcast listener. Mm-hmm. And, meeting Joe was awesome, but I didn't really have like a big history of like Joe and what he did.
Okay.
And, his podcast or anything like that. So it was kind of funny with the interaction, kind of going into my ideas for how this should be implemented from like a technical standpoint. Mm-hmm. And then also seeing Joe's reactions and him kind of almost feeling like that's not what he expected.
Okay.
I think at some point, with a job like that, it's easy to just say yes.
Yeah.
We'll just figure it out and we're just going to go with it.
Yep.
But, I would never want to do a project if we weren't doing it the right way.
Right.
And so I kind of lead forward with that no matter who the client is. So in this case, Joe was awesome about giving me those liberties to be able to like make that happen with whatever kind of like small parameters he let us work with, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, basically it was just, hey, I'm Joe Rogan. I'm Matt. Cool. This is what I'm going to do. Like, let's figure it out. By the way, you have 2.5 weeks to do this.
That's so quick.
Right.
I mean, that is so quick.
Yeah.
How do you get that designed, outfitted, done in 2.5 weeks? I mean, were you just working like 15-hour days?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, because first of all, like figuring out how what the end result should be and how to get there. I mean, that takes a little bit of time to go from here's a room and now we're using it in 2.5 weeks that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it was, again, when the first thought in my mind is like, yes, I've done this before, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is what I, have made my career around, but, after you say yes, you're committed, right? So there's like no room for error. There's no margin for error. It's just like, hey, we've got to do this, right?
Yep.
And so that first week was probably the most stressful, even more so than the labor and like getting it built out was the procurement of materials and subcontractors and things of that nature. Like, how are we like, can we get an electrician in here in this quick timeline to like get us our electrical and our duplexes? Can we get, the sprinkler guys to move these things around? Cause like we have to build around this stuff.
Yep.
And then can we get material like the soundproofing material we used inside the walls? Can we get all the acoustic panels? Can we get, all the cabling we need? And so that first week was literally just dedicated to getting everything procured. And then the following week was just go. Like
putting it all together.
Yeah, it was kind of having a schedule and saying, okay, this hits the ground on this date. Let's make that happen. and then let's keep moving forward as material comes in. And so there was a very finite schedule for how we had to, implement every aspect of that build.
Are you a decent project manager to begin with, or was this like taking things to a whole different level? Because just the project management aspect of this seems like it's pretty intense.
Yeah, it was intense, but doing that with WeWork prior and the company before that, it was more of a constrained schedule to work within.
Okay,
but it was okay. I think that was the main part of it, was that planning process. If somebody goes into a project and says, okay, I've got 2.5 weeks, regardless of the scale of the project, and they don't spend at least 2.5 days planning, you're just shooting from the hip.
Yes,
and
exactly.
There's so many errors that happen, and you're spending more time fixing those things after the fact,
yes,
than actually getting it done right the first time. For sure.
Why so quick? Was it a last minute decision, or did they just kind of ran out of time, or do you have any idea?
I really don't know. I know that that move, and if you watch his show, he kind of explains like, hey, we decided to leave on this date, and we needed to be ready to produce on this date. And I think somewhere in between there, it was like, okay, well, we got to find a guy to make this happen.
Yep.
And so honestly, I don't know exactly why, but I just know that was a time frame
that's what you were given. Yeah. I think I heard him, because I listened to his show. I don't listen to every single episode because there's a ton, but I do check in occasionally, and I think he's a master at the craft. Honestly, I think he's exceptional. And I think I heard him say this summer or fall, that it was decision to actually living in the new house in like 6 weeks. I mean, that's very short. I mean, you think about a family, like, and this is not like me moving. This is like a celebrity moving. This is kind of a big deal. So to go from like decision to actually living in a new house in 6 weeks, along with the studio and everything, that's pretty impressive to pull that off. Obviously, you were a huge part of that. Clearly, there, we don't need to go share details that would invade on Joe's privacy, but this is a room inside of a bigger building.
Yes.
Okay. And how big is the room? Like, how big is the studio?
I think it was 24 in depth and something like 14 in width. And because it's cylindrical, I think at the top point, you're working with maybe 8 feet, 9 feet.
Oh, at the top, at the highest.
At the very...
And then, like, it looks like you kind of, it is like a cylinder. So, like, can you stand up straight and walk in by the table, or do you have to sort of bend in a little bit?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if you're walking towards the walls, it's as you get closer to those walls and like the acoustic panels that are mounted, it's harder. You may have to bend down if you're like 6'5" or something like that. But it's a pretty quick curve once you get to a certain point. Okay. Like, I don't know how many NBA players Joe has in there or anything like that, but if Yao Ming's in there or something, it's probably gonna be pretty uncomfortable.
So 14 by 24. So like maybe like the width of this room and then like the length of this space here, give or take.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is pretty close.
Okay, it looks a little smaller than that. I think it's just because of the cylinder maybe, and when the table's in there, and then of course you have Jamie's stuff.
Right.
So by the time you factor all of that, so yeah, I mean that space would fill up pretty quick.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.